Welcome, welcome, welcome to this week's episode of Heart
Heart
Chronicles
Chronicles.
with myself, Minister Tasha, and my lovely co-host.
Miss Amber B.
This week we have a very interesting topic that we're going to delve into. I think it's one that we as Christians kind of
Shy away from.
we definitely shy away from
Yes.
talking about this, but I think it's something that really needs to be discussed
Absolutely.
because I think the younger generation feels like that this is kind of like an antiquated subject, meaning it's outdated and it doesn't exist and
They
the
don't.
standard is still not the same.
Yes.
However it is. So I think what we want to try to do today is dig into the reasons on why, not just the don't do it because God said it, which that's a great reason why. That's the main reason why.
Right.
But also the things that are attached to it, because for myself, I was the person that you couldn't just say don't do, because I'm going to go figure out why you said don't do it.
Yes.
So for the people that are like that, we're going to give you a little more information on why you shouldn't. And our topic for today is sex before marriage.
Sex before marriage.
Oh,
Yes.
this is a hot topic.
This is a hot topic, and it is a hot topic because it doesn't just affect our younger generation, it also affects the generations behind us
It does.
and the generations before us.
It does.
Because I don't care what your age is, everyone has a desire to be sexual.
Yeah, because it's a natural.
Because it is a
it's
natural feeling.
Yes.
God created us to have the desire of sex
Yes, He
and to
did.
have those feelings.
Yes, He did.
So we are going to kind of have some of those conversations and kind of get some understanding as to why it is that God desires for us to save ourselves for
Right.
our spouse. Because there is an underlying reason as to why,
It
and I don't
is.
think we quite understand it until we have crossed the line and
Several
tested
times.
the water.
Several times.
We've tested the waters,
Yes.
and then as we mature in our walk, we begin to take a look and say, "This is why
That's right.
God asked me not
That's
to
right.
do this."
But I think part of the reason why, again, because when we were younger, they were typically telling us not to, but no one actually took the time to explain the emotional, the mental, the physical effects of
Yes.
the act that you're committing. Don't do it because you're supposed to save it for marriage. That's it. That's all.
Mhm.
But I think we're moving into a generation where they want to know why,
They want to know why,
and for them,
and I think we need to let them know
just
why.
to say, and I'm not, by no means am I undermining when I say just to say God said don't. I'm not undermining because that's enough within itself.
Right.
But we need some supporting information to help them to
Yes.
get the full picture of the reason why.
Yeah.
The reason why
Because
not.
and also we are in a generation now where explanations and having conversations is the norm.
And it's
It's
necessary.
not a hidden conversation any
Right.
longer.
Right.
I've had these conversations with children as young as 12 and 13 years
And we
old
should.
to some degree,
And we should.
with some a little bit of care with how I said certain
Mm-hmm.
things. But we have to have those conversations now because our youth are having sex at a very, very young age. Sometimes 12 and 13 years old.
Right.
So if we can get to them now
Mhm.
and explain to them the reasons behind waiting and getting a better understanding to them, maybe it will save them from some heartache and some
That's right.
confusion later on in life.
That's right. And the flip side to it is for the adults that have tested the waters.
Mhm.
And you're afraid to take yourself out the swimming pool.
Yeah.
This is to let you know that you can, and the reasons that we're encouraging you to at
Mhm.
least try it.
Yeah.
At least try it. At least try it and see if there is a difference.
Mhm.
Because there's a huge difference.
Yes. So one of the things you just said was to encourage you to take yourself out of the swimming
Yes.
pool. And I immediately begin to think about a swimming pool. When you go swimming, when you get out of the water, it's fine for a minute, but after a while, you like, that water felt a little
felt so-
comfortable. I need to
It
get
felt
back in
good.
there.
I want to get back in.
That is exactly how it
Yes.
is when you have sex with someone that is not your mate.
Yes.
You've tested those waters
Mm-hmm.
and you've gotten in there, and be it was too cold or it was uncomfortable, you get out. But there's something that happens because you've had that experience
It does.
that makes you say, well, let me go try it again. Maybe maybe the water's a little warmer,
'Cause
or
now-
maybe
now
it's a little.
embedded in our memory. We have
It's
this
embedded
memory.
in its memory,
Yes.
and you have this experience.
You have an
in
experience. Now
your
you have
head.
something to go by.
Yes.
You have a marker. So if it was bad, you like, well, maybe something is better.
Yes.
And if it was good, you're like, well, let me do that again.
Yeah. Let me see if
Let
it
me-
is the exact same.
Yeah, let me see if it's just, maybe it's gonna be as good this time.
Right.
But that's the euphoric reaction that it has. It's that drawing.
Mm-hmm.
You want more. you want more, because now you've opened up this thirst that there's only one thing that can cure it, and that's to do it again,
That is right.
you know?
And as a, I am a firm believer that in order to speak on certain topics, to some degree, you kind of have to be a little transparent. So
That's
I'm going to
true.
be a little transparent here. I did not wait until I was married to
Mm-hmm.
have sex. But now that I am a married woman, I really hate that I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because, as you spoke of, you test those waters.
You test 'em.
And it does embed certain memories in your mind, and it does embed certain ideas and
Right.
thoughts, and that's not what God ordained for us
That's
to do.
right.
He ordained for us to have a soul tie and a connection to the person that we did a covenant
Eternal
with.
connection.
Eternal, forever.
Forever.
Forever connection.
Forever.
Yes.
And I think what happens is the reason why most of us, especially for women, I can't really speak for men, but for women, we feel like it's a proving. Well, if I do this,
Mhm.
then they'll love me more. Oh, he'll like me, Or you feel the giddy feeling, and you think that that's just what you're supposed to do because,
Mhm.
let me give him something.
Yes.
And again, like you said, I choose, for my marriage, I didn't wait either.
Yeah.
And even afterwards, and then there came a point in my life where I was like, you know what? Let me draw the line in the sand. Let me set
That's
the
right.
standard, and this is what it is, because first and foremost, I didn't like the results that I was getting,
That's right.
you know.
Because it does. It creates. Here's one of the things that I have learned over my life is that sex creates such a strong emotion that you can't even put it into words
It does.
sometimes.
It does.
And how unfair is it to your mate? And this is for men and women. How unfair is it to your mate to have all of these experiences with other people and then put all that responsibility on them when you do a covenant with them to have the expectation that they fulfill everything that you experienced before them?
That's right.
That's so unfair.
That is, because again, God created just for that
He
one
created it just for you.
person. That one person.
That one person.
That you're going to build memories with, that you're going to have
Yes.
the major experience with, that you're going to grow with, even, sexually.
Yes. Yes.
So I think we jumped the gun.
We do. We
And
do.
then, as one of the studies that I was watching, that I read, it was saying that when we do that, we get in the habit of bonding and breaking, bonding and breaking, bonding and breaking. So therefore, when it is time to bond with our spouse, we're unable to.
I think you should elaborate a little more on that bonding and breaking, because that's deep.
It is deep.
It is very deep when you hear bonding and breaking, because what does that look like for
Because-
someone who doesn't really understand what you're saying?
Because basically, when you have a soul tie, what it does is it forms a tie with another person mentally, physically, and
Emotionally.
emotionally. So even if they have multiple partners, all the people that they've slept with, that they haven't broken up with, or did the cleansing process, when they get with you, you have them plus all those other people. You have you and all your other people, and then y'all come together.
Whew. So, ladies
And
and
men.
gentlemen,
Yes.
what that says is, if you get with your wife and she hasn't cleansed herself from all of those soul ties,
And it's
you're getting
necessary.
in the bed with Crystal, along with Ronnie, Bobby,
Or whoever
Ricky,
else.
and Mike.
Yes.
And
It's necessary.
that is so unfair. And I know that there are a lot of women out here and a lot of men that have a desire to be married and be in a covenant with someone. And I would strongly recommend and suggest that you ensure all of those soul ties and those spirits, because they're spirits.
spirits.
They're spirits, that they are cleared from your memory. They are cleared from your heart. There's no connection when you see people.
Right.
Because
But that's how you know.
That's how you
And
know
that's
if you still have one.
But that's the thing that
Absolutely.
I love about God, because when you really get in that place where you really are committed, and that really is your heart's desire, and you really begin to allow Him to work on you, He begins to naturally say, okay, do this, clean your phone out. Okay, do this, do that. Then you start having closure conversations. Then He says, okay, like for myself, clean out your closet, clean out the purses and all the gifts, get rid of all that stuff. Like, you really go through the process of breaking and cleaning. And when I say He leaves no stone unturned, no stone
That's good.
unturned.
That's good.
When you
That's
but you
good.
have to allow Him to. You have to allow Him to, and you have to be open to it, because for a lot of us, when you've been doing what you've been doing,
Mhm.
it's a comfort zone. So you gotta let that go, because now this is you mean I'm gonna be. You think you're going to be lonely, but it's not lonely. It's just alone, and there's a big difference.
Yes. So what is the difference? Because I'm not sure everybody understands that, and I don't know if I've ever really looked at it in that way. When
And
you
alone?
said there's lonely and then there is alone, because I guess when you say it that way, it is a difference.
It is, because alone
a
is
major
just,
difference.
I'm by myself.
I'm just
working
by
on
myself.
Yeah, but lonely is you're yearning for someone to be there and to feel
Yes.
something. When you're alone, you're getting that. That doesn't mean you don't have those moments where you want someone around, because you do.
Mhm.
You absolutely do. However, there's a different satisfaction when you're lonely. That means you're doing what you can to just get somebody to be there, to be in your presence, even if it's talk on the phone. Well, let me go to dinner. You're just busying yourself with people because you're afraid to be by yourself, alone. And when you're alone, you become all one.
Whole.
Alone, all one, whole. Yes.
Well, all right, Minister Tasha, for the clarity on that.
Girl, you crazy. But that's the thing that we don't really pay attention to. So what happens is, and just like in my first marriage, you're fragmented people. So
Very true.
you're bonding fragments and fragments, and they don't make a whole, because you don't have all one and all one.
So do you think there is a difference with, excuse me, where maybe you have a situation where maybe one spouse has had sexual experience, has had sex prior to marriage, and then there's a spouse who hasn't had any experience. Do you think that that creates a level of confusion also? Or do you think it creates maybe less confusion?
I think that can go either way,
Okay.
because for the person that isn't experienced, it creates a level of excitement, because you're like, okay.
This
But
is
for the
new.
person that is, I can see where that would be. It could be.
Could be a frustration.
I was just getting ready to say that, little
It could be a
frustrating.
frustration.
Yeah.
Because you've had experiences with
Yes.
others, so you expect for this inexperienced person to already
know,
know
to
these
know.
experience things.
But
That is
either way,
very
it's
true.
still a learning process. Even once you get married, you have to learn each other.
So when I hear, the whole sex before marriage, the first thing that comes to my mind automatically is we're referring to the women.
But it's men and women.
It is men and women, but I think as a society, we automatically assume that's the woman's responsibility to
set the
save
standard.
herself and set the standard.
Right.
And you don't often hear of men saying, I want to save myself for my wife. Do you think that we are maybe moving in a direction where people are starting to change their mindset about that as it relates to men? Saying, hey, I think I want to save myself.
Yeah, I think so, because I do know some men.
That's good.
I know
That is
some.
good.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if I've ever met a guy that has said, I'm saving myself for my wife. I think it's a
Now,
wonderful
I do
thing
know
if
some
you
that
do,
are
though.
pure virgins, and there are some that have, like, what, been
Had
there,
some
done that, so
experience.
have some experiences. Let me try something different. Because we do understand that when you do that bonding, it clouds your vision.
Yes.
And so you can't,
Yes.
because she's Coke bottle, you can't quite see that, that she might not have the substance that you need.
Yes.
Or whatever, because you're looking at, we have this chemistry.
Mhm.
And the same thing for women. He's so dreamy, but you can't have a conversation with him.
Yes.
So
You know what? And that kind of brings up some of the points that you made here when you talked about those different feelings that come about once you've had sex
Yeah.
with someone. And it's a difference for the men and the women.
A complete different, because we get all cozy and
Yes.
it's all lovely, and oh my God, I
Oh my
just
God, he's the
love
one.
him.
I think he's the one.
Immediately.
Immediately. He's the one.
He's the one we're gonna
He
get
makes me feel this
married.
way. And that's because something is released during sex.
That's the hormone.
That hormone is released. What do we call that?
The oxytocin.
Oxytocin
Yes.
is released, and it just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, you relieve stress, and you're like, oh my God, he just takes so much stress away.
Yes.
And then for the men, the vasopressin, they get a little jealous tendency a little bit, but it activates what they call the commitment hormone.
And it's just the commitment for the moment because that's what's released in the moment.
Not
And
for
that
the
is
moment.
that is not any shade towards any of the men, but it's just the realities of what takes place when we are performing a sexual act.
That's it, but that's just two of the hormones. The last one is the happy hormone, and that's the one that makes it addictive, because you have this feeling, and you want to keep getting that feeling. You want that
Over,
rush over and over again.
and over again.
Yeah.
And you just think about, like you said, it creates the happy feeling.
Mhm.
That is why sex creates so many issues. It creates so many different layers, uh, because again, you're happy for the moment
For the moment.
versus being in a covenant with
Yeah,
someone
because that's what it was designed
and having
for.
that experience to be happy all of the time with this one person over and over.
Yes.
Because one person's happiness may bring you a different type of happiness, and you're mad because that happiness wasn't
It's
like
the
the
same.
last happiness.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
and-
so
and
many, it's levels
It's
to this.
levels.
Yes,
It
levels
is,
and layers.
absolutely.
Yes, it is.
And I just, it's such a cliche topic to some degree because
But it really isn't.
it's not. But in the same token, I just feel like, why didn't we get those conversations?
Because they were afraid to talk about it, and I don't think they understood it to the degree that we understand now. All they knew was, don't.
Don't do it.
That's
It was treated like a bad thing.
It was.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
and
one
so,
of the
so when
things.
you thought about sex, you was like, oh my God. But
Mhm.
God created it for bonding for a man and a woman in a covenant marriage.
Right.
Because that's the thing that when y'all don't like each other no more, when we, I'm not gonna say anymore, but on this day we don't like each other, or
Mhm.
it's the thing that he uses to keep you guys bonded and connected to
Mhm.
override everything that's going on externally.
Yeah.
Because that's an internal thing.
Oh, that's so tough.
It is.
Yeah. You know, when you look back at, our former generations, our parents and our grandparents, they were married as teenagers. So the wait wasn't as long.
The wait wasn't near as long.
It was not that
It
long.
wasn't. So now we're moving into people want to be more career, settle in their careers and financially
And they're not trying to get in serious relationships until they're in
almost
their
30.
late 20s.
So I did.
Yes.
So I did a study. Actually looked that up, and basically now people really aren't getting married until they're in between 27 and 30. As opposed to, I think it was like 20, I think it said 2013 or something like that. It was more like 25, 24. So now they're waiting a little longer. So now the wait is longer.
I've heard of, so there are some people who have decided, you know what, just so I can be on the right path with God,
Mhm.
I'm going to go ahead and get married so I can be safe
And the Bible does
have
tell
sex.
the Bible does tell you it is better to marry than to burn.
and that is what
And
it
that's
says.
okay, yeah.
But,
But that's because you know yourself. You know you, and you know this is what I need.
but then I have to raise the question, well, are you truly marrying, for the right reasons? Like, is it just a sexual thing, or is it because you desire to have the covenant?
I think it's still the same. I think because you know that about yourself as you're meeting people, you know what you're looking for already. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's the sex aspect
Right.
of it, but your intention on what you do with the person that you encounter
Mhm.
is black and white. There's no game playing. Because I'm looking for a wife or I'm looking for a husband.
Mhm.
Because I know this is me. So this is what I'm looking for.
So, for our ladies out there and our gentlemen, if you are, in your 20s and your 30s and you have that struggle of wanting, you have those sexual feelings
And
and you
it's
have the
real.
desire, it's okay,
It's
it's
real.
normal, it's real. But understand that when we step outside of the will of
Mm-hmm.
God, that there are some consequences that come with those
It is.
decisions.
It is.
And you may not see them in the immediate,
Mhm.
but they will begin to show up later on in your relationships.
Yes.
I know in
And
your
know that if
study.
you do, the feeling isn't a bad thing.
No,
So-
absolutely.
So if you are one that you've like, you know what, I'm ready to do this the right way, ask God to show you how to control them, not to take them away, because that's a whole different ballpark.
No, don't ask God
Don't
to take
ask
it
God
away.
to take them away.
You need all of that.
You're going to need that when you get married, especially if
Yes.
you're desiring to be married. But
Yes.
ask Him to show you the things to do
Mhm.
to control those urges, because they are real, especially if you've already experienced them.
They are.
And then you no longer have that,
Mhm.
because the body is real. And hey, when you set your mind to do something, we know how the old trickster works.
Yes.
He comes bringing the thought. You hear that song. You see that movie.
And it gets
or
you
that
every
car.
time.
You like you smell that scent, that fragrance, and those are triggers. So you have
Mhm.
to know your triggers and know what to do to move past those.
It is. I think sex is a wonderful thing.
It is.
I do think that if you make the choice of having it prior to marriage, which many of us have.
Most of us have.
Most of us, probably 95%
most of us.
of us have. You have to be willing to let God work with
That's
you
it.
and work on you
That's it.
to get through those things that are now a result of your choices
That's
to
it.
go outside of His
That's
will.
it.
And I think that's the thing that we have to grasp and understand as believers, that no, you may not have done everything that God wanted you to
And
do,
we don't.
and we don't. But there is a fix to that, and the fix is to let God come in there and
Repent.
work on that. Repent first of all, and get cleansed so that He can work through you.
And He
Because
does.
being sexual is a stress reliever.
It is.
It does free your mind. It does provide you with a connection with someone that you may not have, in other relationships. It's just a different bonding.
It is.
I've always heard people say, the way I love my husband will never be the same way I love my children
is
or
true.
I love my mama. It's just a different
Which is true.
connection. And God created us to be forever.
He did.
And the sex is going to be one of the things that keep that forever in place.
That's right. But one of the interesting things that I found, it says that couples that practice sex before marriage are more likely to break up than those who abstain.
I can definitely see the truth in that.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely see the truth in
Because
that.
you have no, I'm not going to say you have no foundation, but
You're building
It's-
from images.
yes.
You're building
that's a
from
great way to say
images.
it. That's a great way
You're
to say
building
it.
from images, and there have been some, celebrities who have spoke on this particular topic.
Really?
And they have went very in depth on their thoughts concerning marriage, sex before marriage, and how it has affected their marriage, and how it has created these desires and these images and these expectations that they've placed on their wife, unknowingly, but it's because they didn't work on that piece
And
of it.
that experience
And
was it was crystallized
Yes,
in their mind.
and it did.
Yes.
It created issues. So
I bet it did.
I can definitely understand Christian couples who have had sex with other partners coming together, and at some point in your marriage, I don't believe that it's ever a situation where you constantly have issues, but I do believe that issues will arise.
They do.
Because the experiences are there. I know that God gets rid of them, but I do believe that there are some things that they just kind of stay.
They kind of linger.
They linger, and it takes a while sometimes
I
to get
agree.
some of those things out of your
Whether
head.
it's good or bad.
Whether it's
It
good or
takes a
bad,
minute.
and that's with anyone. I don't care who it is. I don't care if you had sex at 17 and you never had sex again until you was 29.
That's right.
You still have a
You have a
memory
memory
of something.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. That's right. It also says that breakups are a lot more painful when you have sex before marriage.
Oh yes. Oh yes. I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, you have this false pretense. Your hormones are all out of whack. Now your vision is clouded. Now you think you broke up and it's the end of the world. And most times it's, God, why did you let that happen? And it ain't that He let it happen.
He didn't let
You
it happen.
did that.
You chose that
Yes,
situation. You
yes.
chose that storyline, and this is just the way it
Yes.
outplays.
And I think what happens is the more and more that you do it, the more that it hurts. And in turn, over time, your heart becomes hardened and you get desensitized to the whole bonding. So when it's time to bond
You don't want
to
to
that one, you like, I can take it or leave it.
And you know what? There's so many women that think like that.
Oh, I
Been
know.
down this road, done
Oh,
this.
I know.
But because that sex got in there somewhere, it
Yes.
has tainted our mindset on how we view relationships as a whole. And to some degree, it's probably keeping us from having a healthy relationship.
It is.
Or maybe even overlooking someone because we've automatically put these preconceived notions on them
That's
that
right.
I'm sure you probably act just like the last
Uh-huh.
one. And it's like, man,
But
I
most
didn't even
of the
get an
time-
opportunity.
But most times, that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Wow.
It's real, isn't it?
It does. It distorts our view of sex altogether.
Altogether.
Um,
And even if it doesn't create relational consequences, just your spirit, man.
mhm.
You know, I don't know about you, but I remember the times waking up like, man, because you feel distant from God.
Yes,
You know,
you
and then
do.
so just each time you keep doing it,
Mhm.
till finally you're like, I'm just out here.
You do. I have been
Yeah,
there. I have been there.
Absolutely,
Absolutely, I have been there.
It is what it is.
Yes,
you know?
I have been there. You know, I think we are in a world where we do the sex first, and then as a result of the sex, we say, let's go ahead and try to create
And try to
the
build,
love.
which is putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, and I think the way God has ordained for it is to be friends, build a relationship. The love is then created, and as a result of the love, you get the dessert, the bonus,
reward.
which is
Yes.
the sex,
That's
which comes
right.
at the end.
That's right.
And we start at the end, and then we try to work backwards, and then we're frustrated when it doesn't work.
That's right.
Because oftentimes when we do have sex in advance or outside of marriage, we realize that it was never love to begin
Yeah,
with.
it's
It was
lust.
nothing but the lust.
Yes, it was lust.
And that desire and that craving for those feelings.
Clouded your vision
Clouded,
completely.
just
clouded
completely
your
blind,
eyes, your
rose-colored
mind.
glasses
Yes.
on. I can remember when I was in college, we had to take a sex education class. And she spoke about all of the different, a lot of the boys, I was 19 or 20 years old, and the boys would just be in the class, they're just cracking up, and she's talking about orgasms, and she's talking about all the different feelings that come about, and she touched on some of these things. It went in one ear and out the
Of
other.
course, because you take it lightly.
To everybody.
Until it happens.
And I think back on some of the things she said, and it's like, you weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
You weren't paying attention.
Because it was the truth.
Mhm.
You feel what they feel.
Yes.
You kind of thinking what they think, and you wonder, what is wrong with me? So then when it's time to break up, you have to detach all this stuff. And that's when, for us, we stick to the stomach. We're in the corner crying, because
Sex can
that
be
bonding and
painful.
break- It can be.
It can.
When it's out of order. When it's out of order.
My recommendation is if you are currently sexual and you want to get into a position where you have a whole healthy relationship
Yes.
that is God ordained, find a way to allow God to fulfill those feelings and
And
not
he
another
will.
person right now.
Right. But it's real.
It's real.
It's real.
Because I understand.
Yes.
We've been there.
Yes, it's real.
But there is a greater reward
It is.
for getting
It really is.
within the will of God.
And especially when you
Yeah.
find someone that is in alignment with you and your standard and your
Yes.
view, it makes it just that much easier because you guys both understand what God wants for you as his children.
Yes.
And then also it helps you to stay focused on what the end result is. So in place of us saying if we're compatible intimately, you're looking to see, dang, do you fit my future? It's one thing to fit my now, but can I see this person evolving into where God is taking me? Because, he's already giving you glimpses of what that's going to look like. But when you take sex off the table, like you said,
It allows you to focus on the more important
on the
things.
more important things, yes. Do they handle their money properly? Are they this? Or whatever your things are. Because, everybody's things are different.
Yes.
But they should be, number one, they love the Lord.
That needs to be number
Number
one
one.
on your list.
Yes, if they love the Lord, they will know how to love you. And
That is
goes for
very
men
true.
and women.
That is
you
very
know,
true.
And then the rest of the stuff, But even with that, you wouldn't be able to see it because you'll be looking at, oh, they said they do, as opposed to looking at their actions because their actions will tell you exactly who they are. But when you got them glasses on, baby,
When you got the glasses on, you just can't see.
you cannot see.
And we don't want our sisters and brothers out here not being able to see clearly because we continue to keep walking down the paths of bonding and breaking.
Bonding and breaking, desensitizing our hearts and our spirits.
Yes, it's just not worth the long-term effects
Right.
and heartaches that are created as a result of
Right.
us not doing what God has asked for us to do.
And there are long-term effects.
There are long-term effects. Yes, there are definitely long-term effects. We just have to get to a space in life where it's not always our will.
That's right.
And I think that as adults, I think it may be a little different, or maybe the struggle is a little harder for someone who's young, or maybe even young in their faith,
Right.
as far as understanding that it doesn't always have to be your will. Sometimes you need to let God's will go
That's
forward.
our sense of control.
Yes,
We have to control
we have to
everything.
release that control
do.
because it will be to your benefit, and you don't have to fall within the
Everybody's doing it.
everybody's doing it.
Everybody's
because
doing it.
everybody's not.
That's right.
Everybody's
telling
not.
you that they're not.
Yeah, they just a lot of people don't have these conversations because I understand it's a personal topic.
It is.
it is one of those topics that if someone does speak on it, they speak around it. They don't go in a lot of detail, as you shouldn't have this conversation with any and everybody.
That's right.
But I do believe that if you are struggling in that area, connect with your sister or brother
Yes, that would encourage you,
that will
keep you
encourage you
uplifted.
to
Yes.
stay the
You-
course,
that's
draw the
right.
line in the sand.
That's it.
It is okay. Life is not over. You
It's
can
not.
still have fun.
Yes, you can.
God can take care of those feelings and
Yes, he
just
can.
as fast as they come is just as
That's
fast as He
right.
can make them go away.
That's right.
So
That's right.
understanding the importance of that and holding on to that would probably be my one last piece of advice. You have a last piece of advice you'd like to give our listening audience today?
And again, I can't stress enough that we're not saying that sex is a bad thing, because it isn't, but it was created for a covenant relationship with the person that God has ordained for you, or the person that you are in covenant relationship with,
Right.
meaning a marriage. Like she just said, stay the course. Get you some people that will hold you accountable. If you already know that you have certain triggers, try not to put yourself in those predicaments. You know, and if you aren't at a place where you've decided that this is what you want to do, that's okay also. At least try to work towards it, because there are benefits to taking sex off the table.
Absolutely. So again, we thank you guys for tuning in
Yes, thank
as
you.
we had a discussion about a very much needed subject
Very
matter,
touchy.
sex before marriage.
Yes.
So again, thank you for tuning in on this episode of Heart
Heart
Chronicles
Chronicles
with myself, Miss Amber B, and my wonderful co-host.
Minister Tasha.
We will see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.